Hey everyone, this is Brian with International Security Training. Thank you for listening to this short webinar on training. I'm going to talk about cross-training, folks, look at some primary, refresher, OJT aspects. And remember, we have to train even if our folks growl about it, even if our supervisors and managers say there's not enough time. We have to run a professional operation, and especially for legal and liability reasons. You can have a great year of business, and all it takes is one lawsuit where the opposing attorney looks at your training records and says, really? Your folks haven't been trained? Or if they were trained, it's been over a year since they've even been exposed to it. You don't have refresher training in place? All right, judge will give the award to the opposing side. And that award can wipe out one or many years of profit and has in the past ruined a lot of companies. So training and cross-training and refresher training is of key importance. At a minimum, all detail and team personnel need to be trained first on their specific jobs, their primary positions. Now, not just a training and an orientation, but a qualification process. Some people call it certification, or SOJT, which stands for specific on the job training in their primary positions. But focus on the structure and qualification of an SOJT program and use role playing as opposed to actually putting brand new people on your client. Okay, you don't want to train people like that. The client didn't pay for a bunch of beginners, so don't do that to them. All right. We should be cross-trained in all other positions as well. Why? Because Murphy's Law kicks in, right? We come under an assault or there's a car accident, all of a sudden we're a position or two down. The other personnel have to fill in different slots, and they need to understand those positions. What is the heartbeat? What is the nature of that position? They should be able to answer those questions and perform as such. In addition to those line positions, if you want to call them that, they also have to know how to operate the command post or the control room. You know, it doesn't matter if it's the military environments that I've worked in, CONUS and overseas, or in country and overseas. It doesn't matter if it's law enforcement or corrections or executive protection. There's always going to be a command post or a control room. Well, you always tend to have this little dividing line and little, negative remarks going back and forth, right? The field guys say, the guys in command post can't work the field no more. That's why they're in the command post. Command post saying, the guys in the field are guerrillas. They can't work in here because they don't know how to type or pick up a phone. Well, I guess that's kind of natural in our environments. We get however we tend to get. But I think you can really reduce the amount of that kind of crap that goes on by cross-training people. They have to know the stressors of each position, and there is stress. I've seen field guys that are great working out in the field, but you put them in a command room, and they're on the phone with somebody, and all of a sudden another phone rings or somebody calls in on the radio, and then there's movement on a monitor. The CCTV camera automates and whips open to a certain zone, and then they get an alarm on the panel. They start to stress out. They don't know how to handle a situation. They don't know how to prioritize. They forget to simply put people on hold and tell them, I'll be right back with you. Put them on hold. That's the way you handle it, right? But they can't do that, and then they're stressed out, they're frustrated, or they're pissed off. And the worst thing about that situation is when you have someone in the command post or control room that's angry, frustrated, and stressed, is it's going to hurt your teammates, the guys in the field, and it's going to embarrass you in front of the client as well. Worst case scenario, somebody gets killed. So we want to make sure that everybody in our team can handle that type of pressure. On the flip side, we want to make sure that the command post personnel never forget the realities of working in the field, rotating through those positions, knowing how to handle their firearms, knowing it from a distance, pretty easy, but when they're up close in crowded areas, that's a different story, right? How to handle working a principal. What is the social decorum and whatnot? Okay, and that brings us, to that topic as to focus on it for a little bit. A lot of people do great in the control room. They do great working in team formations, driving, things like that. But when it comes to working the principal, they just don't have it. And by not having it, we're not a bunch of bulletproof guerrillas carrying firearms. That's not what the principal wants around them in 95% of the jobs. They want someone who has a little bit of tact, social confidence, social ability, not just confidence, but the ability to speak or not speak, the ability to be close when there's a certain risk or an uncomfortable situation, and the ability to back off when the principal's engaged in a professional or a little bit of a personal manner that the agent doesn't need to be, hovering over. So make sure your people go through role plays and train them up. Talk to the guys and the gals who have worked this position and talk to them about the things they've done well. Ask them to talk about and discuss when they've goofed up. And that way, everybody can learn from one another. Movement formations. That's pretty standard, the movement formations themselves. But the drills, the immediate action drills, are not. So make sure you people know what your policies are, what your procedures are that enhance those policies. What are the specific needs of the client and or the environment or the state, the county? If you're overseas, what are the deals over there? So make sure that they know all of that. And I just noticed look at that, a missing parenthesis. So I'll have to fix that. Moving on, refresher training. This is a must. This is where most legal lawsuits, not that there's a lawsuit that's not legal, but this is where most lawsuits, are won by the opposing side. Whether it's corrections, law enforcement, security companies, or an individual bodyguard. Something happens to the client. An assault happens. Somebody gets hurt. Could even be a member of your team. Okay? Whatever the situation is, you get taken to court. And what the opposing individual is going to look at, they're going to look at the whole situation. Was a person appropriately and adequately protected in the beginning? And then was each element addressed? Specifically, the staff. Were they trained and certified in what they were doing? And was their training or were their certifications current for the level of threat or in today's environment and things like that? So all they have to find is one little dink in that training record. Geez, I've seen guys or companies that don't have training records at all. Okay, you have to have a solid training calendar and a record-keeping system and make people go to training. Common complaints are, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need to be trained in this. Damn, this shit's boring. Why do we got to sit here for 4 hours a day? Supervisors and managers might be the ones complaining. They'll say, we don't have time. We have a real job. We're out there doing this every day. Why do we have to train on it? Well, there's always going to be little updates. There's going to be refreshers in policy that have to be done. A lot of times we start to change our actions and behaviors in the field because of the bad guys or because of our moods or because of our frustrations. And we need this refresher training to get us back into line. We're all human beings, okay? Your professionals understand that. They will go to the training. They'll knock it out without complaint. The unprofessional folks will sit there and bicker about it all day long and make your life miserable. I guess you can put up with a little bit of that, but make sure that people know, hey, if you're not willing to go through the process to maintain your professionalism and to sharpen your saw, as Stephen Covey would say, well, then you're not right for the team. So that's it for cross training. I hope there's been a couple things in here that were of value to you. And until next time, my name is Brian with International Security Training.